Hello, it's Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here in this gorgeous, beautiful morning to do a tag because it's Tag Tuesday. Allow me to say I am woefully belated on almost every single tag that I've been tagged on, and I apologize. I'm going to try to see if I can work my way through them. The biggest challenge is now that we're in shutdown and lockdown and kind of returning to a more hardcore shutdown here in the San Francisco Bay Area, I share the apartment with my husband. And so asking for complete silence in a one-bedroom apartment for multiple times during a week is sometimes hard to do, even though he's incredibly kind and generous to do that. But I think I may have come up with a solution. So we'll see if I'm able to film a little bit more frequently. Who knows, maybe not. But let's get on with this tag because this one is belated, not just in the fact that I was tagged a little earlier by one reader, but it's also a little bit past its expiration date, but I'm still gonna do it because I wanna check it off my list. And this is the mid-year book freakout tag. So let's get into the tag itself. The first question is, what's the best book that you've read so far this year? And I'm going to cheat because they're two and they work together. So first was Square Haunting, 5 Women, Freedom and London Between the Wars by Francesca Wade. This book is remarkable. I did this as a buddy read with Elizabeth of Bookish North, and we both have an affinity for London. We were supposed to meet up in London and we're not able to. And so when she saw that I had this, she wanted to buy it in London. She ended up getting it and then reaching out to me and saying, hey, can we read this together? We did, and it was fantastic because we were able to take each chapter in each of these brilliant 5 women and really think about their did we know them? If we didn't, why didn't we? How did we relate to the material? What did we already know? And what did we learn? And this was such a great, number one, great read on its own and a great buddy experience that we decided to continue the party by reading Virginia Woolf's Room of One's Own. She and I have never read Virginia Woolf's work like this before. And we're both very intimidated. So we decided we would do it together, and it was outstanding. Cannot recommend it more highly. And these were 2 fantastic books that I'm so glad I got to this year. Next, what's the best sequel that you've read this year? So I received at ARC an advanced reader copy of Moonflower Murders, which is the second of the Susan Ryland series by Anthony Horowitz. Now, it's a follow-up to this. This is the Magpie Murders, which I just found to be a thoroughly delightful book. It's a mystery. It kind of has like that old sense of a mystery. You have a sense of place, and it's also a mystery in a mystery, and it's set in the publishing world, and there's books, and you have to kind of dig through a previously written material to know what's happening. It just really clever construction, really great writing, really fun characters. I thought this was great. So when I received the ARC for his second one, the Moonflower Murders, I thought, oh, well, let me see if I can get it. I got it. I was thrilled. It's coming out very soon. I'll put the information in the notes below. But I just loved it. It continued in a very glorious way. Where we pick up, it's jumped the narrative forward. She's left publishing. She now lives in Crete instead of London. And she has opened up a hostel with her husband. She has proceeded to get pulled in back to London because a couple has shown up at their hostel and has asked for her specific help because she did the editing for a book that is now figuring into a missing persons case that's potentially could solve a murder. So already we have layers and layers, just like I love, and jumped right in. It was great. I highly recommend it. If you like Anthony Horowitz's writing, he has a very particular style, kind of wry, a little tongue-in-cheek, a lot of winks to the to the reader, I think you might actually really like Moonflower Murders. The next, what is a release that you haven't yet read? So I have two that I'm so excited to, and I think I might try to jump into them this week. Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This just arrived last week. Super excited. I like what she does. I like her writing and her work. And so really looking forward to hearing and reading about a Gothic tale set in Mexico. So this should be great. And then the other one that I'm excited to read is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. Both of these I might try to read and knock out this week in advance of Reading Rush. So those are two that are new releases that I'm excited about. Okay, next up is what is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I have two. Ironically, both out of the UK. I mean, not really a surprise given my reading style, but both of them with the last name Smith. The first one is something that I've known about for a long time and I've had on back order forever, and that is the new Allie Smith, the culmination of her seasonal quartet, Summer. What Allie Smith has been doing in this quartet is very unusual. She's been taking very real-time specific situations that are happening in the world today and writing about them in the real moment, but creating something that's very high literary fiction, experimental, but also drawing threads from history, from art, from all sorts of different reference points, and interweaving them to really draw some big thematic conversations about the moment that we're in now. And a lot of times I don't like this. A lot of times I think that we rush to judgment, and we would be better served by taking a step back, allowing the dust to settle, and then doing an assessment. But what she's creating here is so interesting. And I think the asking of the questions and posing and coming up with a point of view that draws on other pieces and other threads, I think is incredibly interesting. So I'm very excited to read Summer, finish the quartet, because I'm going to be leading a group read of the quartet starting in December. Stay tuned for more information about that specific one. So that's one that I'm excited to read. The second one, I didn't even know. It was a complete surprise. It came out of left field. Very similar in that someone reflecting on the present moment in the moment, and that is Zadie Smith. She's coming out with a series of essays called Intimations, and it's 6 essays. Now, I love Zadie Smith as a character, as a person. I mean, character sounds like she's wild and wacky. As a person, I think she's incredibly interesting, has a lot of interesting things to say. I don't always get along with her fiction, but I really enjoy her essays. So I'm looking forward to reading those two the moment they get here. Next, what is your biggest disappointment in the first half? By far, hands down, without a doubt, it was Marlon James's Black Leopard, Red Wolf. I couldn't whip it. I just couldn't. It was part of the BookTube prize. I forced myself to read every single page. I hate Reddit. And if you're interested in my reaction, I'll put a link to that video below, but just know it's a lot of adjectives about my experience that I was kind of keeping as I was writing. So yeah, that was a disappointment because I really found A Brief History of 7 Killings to be thoughtful. Yes, it had a lot of those same issues of being incredibly violent and very, very difficult to read in some cases, very hard text, but there was a lot of compelling material there. The political nature of what was happening in Jamaica, the influence of the CIA on the local elections, and the effects of the slums versus the singer, Bob Marley's Compound, and and just having Bob Marley as a feature in the middle of it. I thought all that was brilliant. So I had high expectations, and it was not for me at all. Now let's talk about the biggest surprise. So I've heard great things about this book. But I also heard that it's written very minimally, and I don't always get along with that. I like a lush writing. I like beautiful sentences, and so I wasn't sure how I was going to get on with it. But this one knocked me out. This is Kim Ji-young, born 1982, by Cho Nam-jo. Right there. This was fantastic. Yes, the writing is sparse. Yes, it feels very matter of fact. But what she was able to do and the emotion she was able to get out of me in these stories was exceptional. I found this book to be so thought-provoking and such a testament to what women in South Korea are dealing with in terms of feminism, in terms of sexism, in terms of all the ways that they're hindered from living full and productive lives that they want, that are from their choice, based on so many cultural constraints. What I love even more than anything that I've read in a long time is, even though this is a fiction work, she's included facts and statistics to back it up. And so there are footnotes rampant throughout this, which I thought was so smart. So smart. So great, surprising read. And I read this with Celia. And I'll put a link to her channel below as well. Okay, next up is who is your new favorite author? So not a surprise to anyone who's been following, but I have become a devotee of Anita Bruckner, and I have a project with Leo of A Little Book Life, and we are reading all of her works, all 24 of her works. It's a 2-year project, one a month. And so far it's been sublime. We've enjoyed it very, very much, and we're even going to do a in-deep conversation on the first 5 Anita Bruckner books. So stay tuned for that, where we'll go in much, much more detail about Anita Bruckner. Next up, your newest fictional crush. I don't really do that. I don't really get crushes on characters. I know last year, though, I did from Gabriel Oakes from Far From the Maddening Crowd. That he was an exceptional archetype of your hero male. Next up is your newest favorite character. So this woman just makes me laugh because she's out of control. This is Auntie Poldy from Auntie Poldy and the Sicilian Lions. This is a brand new series. I just received the arc for the 3rd. This would cover books for Read German Books 2020, because Mario Giordano, even though it's an Italian last name set in Italy, he actually lives in Germany and writes in German. And this was translated by John Brown John, both of these. These are just fun. They're just fun and funny. This is, if you watch my channel, I love an old lady, and I love especially love a very flawed old lady. And Auntie Poldy is that and more. She's just wild. She's irreverent. She does what she wants to do. She stands up for problems and is really kind of loud and bossy about and righteous about injustice, and tries to get to the bottom of things, even at very, very considerable personal expense. So I find her hilarious and funny and enjoy reading those books. The next is a book that made you cry. I don't cry at many books, but this one destroyed me. The Lost Children Archive by Valeria Luiselli. This is a very interesting book. It's experimental. It's very layered. Story of a couple. They're an archivist couple that work in sound. And they're having a challenging relationship. Their relationship is a little strained. And they're going to take a trip across the country because their New York City project has completed, and that kept them in New York City for a few years. They have 2 children, one from a previous relationship of the fathers, and then a child together. And so the 4 of them go on a cross-country trip to look at the Apaches and Native American culture, and try to capture some of the sounds of the language and the environment and all of this. But the woman has been asked by a person that they know to help find their daughter. Their daughters were put on a train and sent to America, and they used a coyote to take them across the border, and they've been lost. They were picked up by immigration, they were held in detention, and they've subsequently been lost. And this becomes an obsession for her. And I know that some people did not like this because it's very layered, and there's a lot here. She's pulling, like Allie Smith, she pulls a lot of different strings and pulls a lot into the narrative. So you're not going to get a straightforward story here, but what you get is a compilation, like an archivist kind of pulls things together to create a picture. She does so in this book, and it was heartbreaking, and I bawled my eyes out. I don't think I've cried as hard since A Little Life when I read that. This one really touched me. Then a book that made me happy. So I talked about this just recently. I don't read a lot of books that make me happy. I just am not that kind of reader, but this one gave me so much joy. And it is the Tea Dragon Society, Volume 1. And this is a graphic novel. And I just was able to kind of imbibe the spirit of little young me when I used to love reading comic books. The art is remarkable. The story is so tender and delicate and sweet and kind. It's the story of this young little girl who makes friends with a man who owns a tea shop, and he sees something in her, and he has her helping with their dragons, and the dragons sprout tea from their horns, and just like you would shear wool, you have to trim the dragons, and that's how you get these amazing teas. So innovative, it's so interesting. The art is stunningly beautiful, and like I said, I just really loved it. And it had great depictions of diversity in it that just kind of flowed in there, and kind of chosen family types of stories, which I love. So that was gorgeous. Next up is the most beautiful book I bought, and hands down, it is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. Not only is this book itself gorgeous, but when you open it up, the end papers are stunning. And then wait till you see this. Look at all of that gorgeous gold foil. Just remarkable work. And I'm happy to say that it's not just pretty, it's also a great piece of art, inside as well as out. Then last is books to read by the end of the year. I mean, I will admit I'm kind of book drunk right now. I am so in the throes of a passionate experience with reading. It's something that I think a unique opportunity because of Shelter in Place is that I have all of these books here that I've wanted to read, and I'm just, the moment I get off work, I change out of my work clothes, get into something comfortable, sit down in a chair, and I just start going for it. And so, not having to commute is giving me a lot extra time. So I'm relishing it. So I'm going to continue with some projects. So continue with the Anita Brookner project. I'm also doing a Proust project with Leo, the Little Book Life. We are starting to read In Search of Lost Time. Swan's Way is the first volume, and we just started it, and we're both like gobsmacked with the writing. So that will obviously continue. So I'll be reading that throughout the rest of the year. I mentioned that I'm going to do the group read for the Allie Smith Quartet. So I have to do that. And then I'm also going to lead a nonfiction November group read of Samuel Pepys, the Diary of Samuel Pepys, the abridged version, kind of like the selected ones that came from Penguin. So a lot of stuff coming. very excited about all of it. And thank you so much, Juan, for tagging me. I'm not going to tag anyone. Consider yourself tagged if you have not done this already. I think a lot of people have. Again, I'm late to the party. But thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to talking to you later. Bye.